and welcome to our next episode of Networking Knowledge. I'm Paul, founder at Javelin Content, also co-founder at Market and Help Desk, and God knows how many other things. I'm an ADHD business owner, proud family man. I've got 2 young children, and I battle with lots of the same challenges that everybody who's watching this has as well. I've known Dave for quite a long time, and we just want to give some value back to our network. Today's episode in this live stream event is about re-engaging your network after the Christmas and holiday break. Dave, do you want to just do a quick 30 seconds for yourself?
Yeah, I'm Dave. I'm a dad of 3, so I'll take your 2 and I'll raise you 1. I've come back to work for a break. Founder at Collaboration Junkie. We help business owners identify, structure, and scale word of mouth opportunities, which obviously is massively helped if you have a strong network. I've got a background in business membership, run my own membership organization, hundreds of events. So I'm looking forward to this one. Because I've had it asked me a fair bit from kind of clients. I'm running a referral program at the moment, and the cohort there, we did a kind of New Year catch-up reinvigoration, and a couple of the questions were, right, how do I kind of get back in touch with people and maybe get a referral request in without it coming across too much like a New Year, like do you know what I mean? Because
just being gimmicky, and I think that's the key for always. Like, it's always the key with your network is utilizing things like year end or the start of a new year, but doing it in a way that stands out. Because we've all got a limited amount of time in our world, right? Like, whatever, it's the most precious thing I can spend on you or anyone else in my network is spending time getting to find out what you're up to, why I should connect with you again, and figuring out whether it's going to be valuable for both of us. So I think that's really important to consider when you are reconnecting with the network, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think authenticity. Right, if there's a genuine reason, if there's a genuine reason, and the new year is the reason for that, do it in an authentic manner. And I think sometimes we can worry that we're not going to come across as authentic. As if I send this, does this not sound like one of those horrible New Year messages? But I think if you're someone who genuinely is themselves and is authentic with your list, then it won't come across that way. People cut through the, oh no, that's Dave. I'd quite like to talk to Dave or Paul or whatever. So I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Can I kick off though, by the way, with getting a controversial one out there in terms of re-engaging with your list? It's also quite a good time. To kind of, and maybe cull might be a strong word, but if there are relationships you've been persisting with, and it's like don't do the next bit. If like now is a good time to go, is where am I spending my time and who do I want to really, really pursue? So before we talk about re-engaging networks, and I don't think this means lists as a whole, it can mean whatever you want it to mean, but even if it's just rekindling and re-energizing relationships, have a think about what you want to, first and foremost, you need to really be thinking about what you want to achieve over the next 12 months and beyond. And are there relationships that aren't going to serve? If they're not going to serve what you want to achieve and you don't particularly enjoy them, without wanting to sound too brutal, but as you say, there's only so much time we have. Maybe there are relationships that you just keep it slightly more arm's length than you did before. And I think now's probably a good time to do that. It's better to do it consciously than let it dwindle.
It's maybe time to disengage some of your network as well. I think it's fair to say that.
Yeah.
What I would stipulate on that though is don't take the coward's way out with it, because you never know when that part of your relationship, that part of your network might become useful again or actually be really relevant. So what I would say is just don't be afraid to call out the elephant in the room. Give people that bit of an ultimatum, and maybe that makes it go one way or the other. If the other person's maybe dragging their heels about doing something with you, just say, look, we've been talking about this now for the last 3 months. I kind of feel like we've lost some momentum. Christmas has happened. My plans for this year are this. if we can't get this off the ground now, maybe it's best we just put a pin in it for later in the year. And I like using that phrase. We put a pin in it because it means that you're not cutting that person off altogether. There's no need to be harsh and brutal about things.
Yeah.
Everybody's. You could have started that conversation with the best of intentions, and actually you've both gone in diverging directions. But maybe that conversation could bring you back on point again, and save you some real time.
Yeah, and as you say, if not, it's about this will come back around again when the time's right. There's that always that there's a reason why you're speaking in the first instance, isn't there? But I like that kind of let's get on with it bit, which this time of year is great for. And in fact, in terms of a more broader thing, there's a bunch of people who are on my pipeline and on my list where they've been talking for ages about doing referrals properly or sorting their partnership strategy out. And so I've got a group program cohort kicking off on referrals in February and a partnership with a month. And there is going to be an email going out that's fairly standard to a bunch of people, individual emails rather than my mass list. But it is going to kind of be it is going to call that thing out a little bit of like, you're going to do this thing or not. And I think sometimes people, and I think that comes down to me being authentic. And that's what people want in a relationship is it's kind of that like, come on, you said you're going to do it. I'm going to call you up. Yeah, exactly. Or shit off the fence, as I like to say, because I like mixing them up. but it is that kind of, and that might not be right for everyone listening to this, but kind of doing that. I mean, it's a sales message. It's saying, come along to one of these 2 free workshops that are coming up with the idea that there's 1 of 2 programs or they want referrals or partnerships. But like, instead of talking about doing it, do it. And I'm not doing it, it won't be in a crappy way. It will just be a shit off the pot thing,
because these people aren't the enemy, right? And that's the important thing to remember. They're not the enemy. Even if they can't make a decision to save their lives, they're not the enemy. It's procrastination and status quo. They're the enemy. That's who you've got to defeat. And you've got to help them defeat that as well. Yeah. So when you're calling out in these messages, you've got to address the things that are holding them back and why. So it's important to kind of call out, look, I know you want to do this. And I know what's holding you back is this challenge, that challenge, a lack of time, a lack of resources, a lack of whatever, and then call out how you help them with that. I've done this in the last couple of weeks. I'm working with video a lot. I've come across a lot of people who were really keen on working with me to produce videos for their business and create micro moments and clips. And actually, the big blocker has been I'm a bit anxious about getting on camera. And I need somebody to hold my hand as I do that, at least the first few times until I get used to it. And also, because I'm now paying for your services, I don't want to come on, do a bad job and have you produce rubbish outputs as a result through no fault of your own. So I'm scared of that. And I've gone away and addressed that by bringing in a communication specialist who's going to literally do that job. They're going to hold their hand through that process. I've taken away their worries and concerns. So this January, I've gone back out to everyone who's in my pipeline or in my recent contacts and just gone, do you know what? You asked, we did. This is the solution we've got to the problem that you had. If that helps you, brilliant. And you know what? It shook a load of people out of the pipeline.
I was going to say, because you know what? And in case people are looking, Paul and Dave just going to pitch their products for this particular live. No, but I think it gives a really good example of, in terms of re-engaging a list, is like if you've done something that's genuinely going to help people, well, the people that is going to help, and you come from an authentic place of like, typically most of the time you're just giving value out, then going, oh, hey, I've got this thing at the start of the year is now going to be the time that you do it. That works. That is going to go, as you say, shake some people out of the tree. And for those that it doesn't, they're not going to have offense taken by it. They're not going to go, oh, really? How dare they send a message kind of asking if they can help me with a thing that they've got. And so I think now's a really good time of year for doing that. Hey, and it's not like, and if you don't do this, that's it, you're dead to me. Right? Like it's you'll still continue in however else you continually engage with your wider audience, I think. And I think there's you spoke about time right at the offset, that it's the most valuable thing that you can give, but people are all time poor. And so and I've used the word authenticity a lot, but quite often the things that are inauthentic actually take up more of people's time. Like there's the cut to the chase element of this stuff, right? There doesn't have to be sales, right? It doesn't have to be sales related, because that isn't necessarily why you re-engage with contact. You may genuinely want to develop a relationship, but I don't. Particularly where people have less time these days, and so I'm not a fan of people trying to make friends with me via DM who I don't know before, personally, right? Yes, do things in a friendly manner, but I'm not a fan of like, oh right, yeah, how's this thing? I'm like, you want to sell to me, like,
right?
yeah, and it is a fine balance. But for people that you already know, I think the balance swings even more the other ways. You can be a little bit more. Look, this is why I want to chat. But equally, on the getting kind of disengaging, I've sent out a few messages this year where there has been no real purpose behind wanting to re-engage with this person, other than I genuinely enjoyed a conversation with them when we had it. We might have had a few, and it didn't really go anywhere because whatever happened wasn't right. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Things have changed quite a lot in the last 8 months, year, maybe even 14 months. And the message has genuinely been, I've actually pointed out that the reason for me reaching out to them, there is no motive other than you're someone I want to bring closer to my orbit again, because you've drifted slightly out, and I'd like to pull you back in a little bit closer this year and see what might happen. And that's fine, because we're here for a good time, not a long time, right? And so it's absolutely fine to just have people in your network that you have because you enjoy it. How long were we in each other's network for, circling each other until the time was right to start doing things a bit more together, right? Good couple of years, good
3 years,
3 years probably.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want people. Yeah, it's not just about disengaging or re-engaging with people where there is like, you're going to get me somewhere. It's also like, just who do I want around me, right?
I think you've got to consider who's in the driving seat in your internal board of directors, and that's something. So I got this from one of my clients, who's Joe Leach. Joe coaches CEOs.
They're awesome.
You know
They're
Joe,
awesome,
right?
Joe Leach. Yes.
Joe is brilliant, and he talks a lot about, we always worry about having the right personalities on our businesses board of directors for the bigger businesses. Does my CTO really get what we're about? Does my CEO understand where we're at? But you've got the same thing going on inside your own head, and sometimes you've got to analyze. To go back to what you said earlier on, Dave, about feeling a bit cheeky about reaching out to people. Well, is it fact that I'm a bit cheeky reaching out to people, or do I just feel that because not the right person's in the driving seat in here, and actually need to boot them out and put somebody else in place? Is it? And talk about things like, is it procrastination? Is it fear? Is it imposter syndrome in there? And all of these. This board of directors all have positive things that they bring to the table. Even imposter syndrome has positive things that it brings to the table, but also negative things as well. And if it's the negative things that are showing, then kick them out and put somebody else in charge, because they need to chair this conversation. So I think it's an interesting framing to think about when you're reaching out to people and you've got all these mind games going on in your head. They are genuinely your mind games. Nobody else can see or hear those thoughts. And quite often, you've talked before. One of the things that I heard you say a long time ago was, the only person who gets bored of your content is you. And actually, that is a really good line to draw under that whole conversation. Is, again, if you're putting stuff out on content wise and you think, oh, do you know what, I've said this before in a different way and this is a bit dry now. Actually, your audience 99 times out of 100 doesn't think that. It's the voices in your head.
And you know what? Maybe they need a repetitive message, and because saying the same message but at a different time, and New Year potentially is a great time for that, because people are thinking about what they're doing over the year ahead and things like that. And so maybe hearing that message that you feels boring, but hearing it again right now actually is just what they needed to hear, right? Just what they needed to hear. And I think it's I was at something last Friday, and it's a community that I only see quarterly. I spoke at it going back maybe a year and a half ago, and then I've continued to go to it. It's like a quarterly planning type thing. And it was nice. I had a client in the room who gave me a shout out about that, where I fitted into their goals, and I shared something. And I've never done it. And then I, afterwards during the networking, I have 5 different people come up to me and go, I really need to talk to you, Dave. And they know what I've done for ages. And it's been that build up of value and knowing, and it's just the right timing. Subject to content. So there's reaching out to your network with specific messages, whether they're sales messages or getting to know people, but in a broader re-engage or wider network, like something on LinkedIn or whatever other socials you're on.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Are you a fan of it's a new year and I've got new followers, so let's do another get to know me post. And then the other one is the I'm back post. What's your thoughts on those? I'm intrigued.
Do you know what? I'm a big fan of both. Like, I think that I've got new followers is something I try and regularly do at least once every other month or once a quarter, because, you know, I am generating quite a lot of new followers all the time. It might not be as relevant for some people, but they're bound to have added new people into your network. And I would hazard a bet that even the people who were in your network probably missed the last time you did it. So, you know, unless they know what your background is, your credibility is, and what you offer, how can they come to you when the time is right? It's not about you ramming your services and product down their throat. I think it's a really relevant way of helping signpost them to you when their moment of need arises, and you're doing them a favour. And I'd encourage everyone to do that. And I actually think video, like, honestly, I know I go on about video. I don't think there's a better way of doing that than coming across in video, showing your enthusiasm, your motivation, your honesty in what you do. And I think that the back to work for the new year message, I think that's absolutely, 100%, because you're showing that you're the same as everyone else. We're all doing it. We're all, whether we're making, you don't have to be making New Year's resolutions to do that back to work post for the new year. It's a new year. We've got new focuses. There's lots of scary things coming up, lots of good things coming up. And this is a one-to-many broadcast that you're making. So you're reaching lots of people with just one message, rather than trying to tailor lots of messages as though they're individual. And I think that's much easier to do that way around than it is to write a good email that's personalised without spending hours writing very individual emails. Something I was going to fire back to you actually, Dave, is like, what's your, obviously we'll cover off what you've just posed to me, but what's your efficient way of reaching out to your network that adds value but doesn't kind of feel automated?
Yes, you know what? So mine's I just get a newsletter out. Haven't done one in a while, and I get nice feedback on my newsletter. Actually, I try and keep it a mix of value-add stuff, fun stuff. Quite proud of it, actually. I don't think I did one in December, so I need to get a January one out for the people that are on my list. And then broader, I do a free workshop every month, Paul, right? And so for me, it's just changing the messaging up around that, around it being, if this is a focus for this year, come on board with it. And I think they're probably the two main ways. The workshop one's a broader outreach to anyone and everyone. I'm just mixing up the messaging on it. And then the newsletter's obviously for the people that are on the list. And you know what? And so like the back to work type post thing, I suppose what's in it, I've seen some that are literally just I'm back to work, and I'm like, really? Like, I'm just not sure what value it adds, and it makes me gloss over that post a little bit more. The getting to know you post I really like. I did it for the first time in like October, right? And I did a video. I did a little bit on what I do, but it was mostly about me as an individual and who I am and what my values are. And I've seen people do them regularly, and at first I was like, oh, really? And then I was like, yeah, of course they should. And I should do it more. Like, I shouldn't be like, yeah, because the only people where I see their ones multiple times are people whose content I like. But then it's not for me, it's for everyone else. And I'm like, yeah, we should be doing these things semi-regularly. I did mine on video. And then like, there's a post that goes alongside it as well. Would you redo it? Would you redo the same post, or would you redo it? If you were doing one of these get to know you posts where you talk about who you are, what you stand for, and what your business does.
I think it's important to do that. because
You know,
I
but what I'm
think
saying is, when you come to, if you've done one before, would you
yeah,
do it again fresh? Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I would. I like to do that because where my business is at changes all the time. So where
Yeah.
I was a year ago when I first started out, it's very different to where I am now. And also now that I've grown a bit more mature in the business, I understand a bit better how my past impacts on where I am now, and I talk about it very differently. So I think it's okay to reuse that a couple of times, but I think, you know, maybe once a quarter or so, you need to update that video. I don't think there's any harm in repurposing it now and again, but, you know, regularly update it so that where you're at is reflected in the message.
Yeah. Okay. And how about as it literally come to me as we were talking, how about, you see lots of posts about goal setting. I saw you did one, didn't you, right? Around, and I'm all for goal setting. I think I've got 3 different kind of half-day sessions with different communities I'm a part of around it, and I'll do all of them. And goal setting, not resolutions, right? Like, let's not get into a debate about that, but actually properly planning and everything else is a bit different to resolutions. You see quite a lot of posts on that, but I don't mind. I quite like a sharing of a goal, sharing what your goals are, what your things are for the coming year. I think there's an accountability bit. I think those types of things are quite engaging.
A bit of vulnerability in there, right? Because you've got to be willing to put your heart on your sleeve a little bit and just go, do you know what? Here's what I'm aspiring to in this next 3 months or 6 months or however long.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a fair shout. And you know, one of the things that always kind of gets reflected back to me when I talk to people is that people always appreciate the vulnerability that I share in my videos, because I'm just who I am. I can't help it. I couldn't be any other way if I tried. Like, it just is me. But you know, if you're considering starting a video, it's probably quite daunting to consider that. But I actually think it's something that should be part from the start of how you do things. Like, be genuine, share where you're at, because that's how you get people to it's how you get people to see that you're the same as them and they can align with you. And when they start to align, then you start to have conversations. That's when the magic happens.
Yeah, and that's about, again, it wraps back round to authenticity. If you do a goal sharing post, and actually it's because your main goal is that I want to work with 5 corporates in the B2C space, and essentially what you're doing is just using it in an excuse to another broadcast, then that's going to stick out like a sore thumb, right? Share something that people can go, oh yeah, you know what, I'm on that journey too, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's where there's that mix, I suppose, of, if you want to re-engage your network, your broader network, then it's knowing which bits of your network to engage in which way. The people that are in your pipeline, you re-engage with in a different way than people that are just in your tighter sphere, let's say a newsletter list, who you might re-engage with in a different way than your broader LinkedIn connections, right? And while there might be common themes, which is you and who your personality is, it's about going, what message is appropriate for each one of these people, and kind of being intentional about it. Intentional was a word I used a lot last year, and I'm not going to go away from it this year, because it's, I think, what we need to be. And I think that's the key of it, is just taking some thought around, what are you looking to, how are you looking to add value to your network, what value are you looking to get back, and how do you want, and just kicking things off in that way.
Yeah. And I think my take on that would be, my intention this year is to be a little bit more polarizing than I have been. So I can be guilty of being a little bit vanilla and sitting on the fence too much. And I've decided 2024 is the year I get off the fence and annoy some people, because by annoying some people, I will attract others. And as long as I'm attracting the right people, then that is the way forward. So that goes whether you're networking, whether it's your business, whether it's your social life. I'm sure we're all the same way in our social life. We're not afraid to have an opinion on things generally. Don't be afraid to do the same in your business, unless you're part of a corporate, in which case there's things you can be polarizing about. You don't need to be the big things that the business might take offense at.
Yeah, if you please everyone, you'll delight. If you try to please everyone, you'll delight no one, right? And it's having that confidence. It's having that confidence to go, these are the people that I really want to connect with, right? No, if you try this, all that stuff. So.
Well, there we go, and you can tell it's January because it's been a quiet session. We haven't had any comments from people. I guess everybody's beavering away at their desk, getting on with the slew of work that's coming. Like, certainly, if everybody's January's been like my January, it has been an absolute snowball. So thank you very much for joining us, whether you're watching us live or whether you've come back and watched the show afterwards. We will be featuring this as a regular, semi-regular event between me and Dave. Keep an eye on our feed, give us a follow, ring the bell on our profile, and when the next live stream's coming up, you will be the first to know about it. In the meantime, thanks for joining us, and I will see you soon.
Adios, everyone.